Buckle up, nerds. It's time for the Energy Nerd Show. I'm Bruce.
And I'm Jeannie.
Here we go.
Did you ever realize that Energy Nerd Show and Tell is a lot like the end of summer?
How so?
Well, it's kind of cool and it makes you think about like smart stuff.
But it's not sad, and we don't have to go to school.
Do you know who our guest is today?
Is it Alice Napoleon?
Yes.
Hi, Alice.
Welcome, Alice.
Hi, Bruce and Jeannie.
Good to see you. I think today you're going to share with us some of your findings about equity in the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation study. Is that right?
Yes, it is.
Good guess, Dean.
Social equity is super important and getting lots of attention that is well-deserved and long overdue. And to have the social equity issues paired with energy issues, technical issues, is something that a lot of people don't find easily accessible. So are there any lessons learned or things that you found out in the study that you did that you think people would like to know about?
Yes, and the study actually is designed to be very accessible. There is a primer in the beginning that I'm really pleased to say that community action agencies are using as a training tool for new people getting involved in energy regulatory issues. So that's really cool. In general, the report makes a number of findings based on a literature review, a number of interviews that we did with a wide range of stakeholders, including public utility commissioners, members of non-governmental organizations. We talked to a bunch of community action agencies, talked to consumer advocates, we talked to other public interest organizations, and did a whole series of interviews to find out their perspectives on equity, what are the issues that really matter and how they perceive it, and how equity is being handled or is not being handled by energy regulation. And this is regulation of not just electricity, but also of natural gas systems. So it was a really broad study, and we had a focus on equity for particular types of populations. So we were looking at low income and communities of color and small cities and towns, mostly because Robert Wood Johnson saw that there was more attention being paid to populations in the city. And so we had more of a focus outside of the cities. And so we looked at all sorts of issues that affect equity as a result of energy regulations. So we looked at access to energy, so the extent to which natural gas and electricity is reliable and available in certain areas. So access tends to be more of an issue in rural areas for natural gas, and also reliability of electric service can be a really big problem. A lot of people don't live in rural areas don't realize that electricity is needed for getting other goods and services. So your access to water is in rural areas largely dependent on whether your pump is getting electricity. So impacts of that tend to spiral. So you have sanitation concerns. If you're in a rural area, you don't have electricity and then no longer have water.
Are you talking about extended power outages, Alice, or disconnections related to bill paying or something else?
That's a good question. Disconnections, I consider that to be part of access to energy, and it's also very tightly linked to affordability of energy, because if energy is not affordable, it's going to take a larger portion of your income in order to pay it. So there are a lot of states that have targets, or some states have targets for how much energy expenditures should comprise as a part of your income. And so, for example, New York State has a target of 6%, but there are many communities that it's well over that. So in the high teens as a percent of income, or even more. And that varies depending on whether you rent. It varies depending on your race, whether you have children in the home, the condition of your housing. All of these factors really make a difference in terms of what your energy burden is. You also asked about, reliability. So yes, I am talking about reliability too. Sometimes utilities have these long feeders going out quite some distance into rural areas. And if that line becomes disrupted, then there's no redundancy. And so people in rural areas tend to suffer with poor reliability of electric service. In terms of gas, natural gas, it's generally absent. There are a lot of folks who want to see more access to natural gas in rural areas, but one of the things we tried to flush out in this report is ways to provide energy sources, affordable energy sources to rural communities without bringing gas there. Because what we see increasingly on the horizon, or maybe not even on the horizon, is issues with natural gas conflicting with greenhouse gas goals. We have a lot of states that are trying to decarbonize. And so putting in new natural gas distribution systems just flies in the face of that, and where a lot of people think we need to go in terms of addressing climate change.
Can you tell us a bit about why Robert Wood Johnson Foundation would be interested in these issues, and what are they going to do with this information?
So Robert Wood Johnson was coming up on the realization that addressing public health issues is increasingly reliant on people's access to public infrastructure. And so they saw some problems with access to public infrastructure and wanted to do more of a deep dive and wanted to see to what extent social determinants of health that they are able to influence by improving access to public infrastructure. So they actually commissioned, in addition to our report, which is on energy equity, they commissioned reports on water, transportation, and broadband. Water was by a organization called EPIC. Transportation was by Smart Growth America. And Brookings Institution did the one on broadband. And so it was really great. I got to go down to New Jersey and meet with some of these folks, incredibly bright people. And there were a lot of parallels between energy and these other infrastructures, but also there were a lot of differences as well, notably how they are regulated. So water tends to be all over the place and very much on the local level in a lot of aspects, but energy, we see a lot more happening on the state and federal level. And transportation is kind of all over the map. And broadband is really just catching up to energy. So there's a big discussion going on in many forums about what regulatory framework should be using for broadband and for ensuring access to it. So these are all very timely reports. And I think Robert Wood Johnson is trying to kickstart it in a lot of ways.
The reports are all available on the internet, right?
They are.
People watching the show can click on the links at the bottom.
Including the primer that you said is useful for community action agencies.
So that is actually a part of our report. It's the part that's entitled How the Electricity and Natural Gas Sector Work.
That sounds really useful.
It seems like stakeholder engagement is a really important aspect to getting to good policy. Did you see a difference between rural and urban involvement? I mean, I don't know if that was something that you looked at all, but do you see barriers in one place or another?
That wasn't something that we specifically researched, but it was something that we came across, that a lot of the public forums for getting input do take place in either Washington, D.C., or they take place largely in state capitals. And some states are doing more to reach out to their rural communities or communities who have different challenges in participating in public input processes. So having stakeholder meetings at different times of the day so that people who are working during the day or who are working at night can participate, providing materials in different languages or facilitating in different languages. Those are just two examples of things that various places are doing.
Thanks, Alice.
Oh, you're welcome.
There's a lot of work to be done.
There is a lot of work to be done.
Thanks for being on. Yeah. Thanks for watching. This is Energy Nerd Show and Tell.
It's the show that we want to watch, so we're thinking maybe some of you energy nerds want to watch it too. If you do, then tell your friends and subscribe right around here. Click there.
And check
or there or over here.
Instagram and Twitter and Facebook and YouTube and where else?
And the Energy Nerd website at energynerdshow.com. You can always go there. And if you want to be a guest, you can volunteer to be a guest. We love to have guests. fact, that's kind of what the show is all about.
Absolutely.